Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new Elder Scrolls Online video with me, Shaman. Today guys, we are taking a look at the Tesla tank, or the Tesla Sork tank. This is a classic tank build made by Killer Mech, and Killer Mech isn't doing ESO videos anymore right now. And he has given me permission to, of course, copy his build and use it to release it to you guys. Now, I did talk to him about some adjustments and things that I've made to it, and he doesn't agree with all of it, but he says that it'll work and it'll be good for that. He likes to run a different setup, but I prefer this. I think it works out really well. So let's take a look at it. So, starting with the character stuff, we are an orc sorcerer with this. Yes, guys, an orc. I know what you're thinking, why an orc? An orc doesn't make much sense, but it will once you see this thing in its full potential. So we have 40 into magicka, 24 into health, and 0 into stamina. And because of the orc's racial passive of 20k health, or 22,000 into stamina and 1,000 health, we don't need a whole lot in there, so we can compensate. Now this is an advanced build, guys. This is not an in-game trial build. It can work to get you into trials, but it isn't one that I would utilize for trials. I would utilize it for doing dungeons. Like quick runs in dungeons, this thing just blows through them. As you can see, we have 26k magicka, 32k health, 20k stamina. Oh, we got an absurd health recovery. Forgot to do something. Sorry. I was like, why is my health recovery so high? And then I remembered. I even ran around and tested the build a little bit. So I need to grab a few things out of here. And I think this is what I need. Pretty sure. Yes, it is. Alright, there we go. Done, fixed. Alright. So, 972 magic recovery, 432 health recovery, 637 stamina recovery. Do not worry about the stamina recovery. You will be getting a lot of stamina back when you heavy attack with your sword and board. And that's where most of your resource return is going to come from with this build, and potions. Now, moving on. We do have a 1900 weapon spell damage with a 1990 weapon damage. Not really too bad. 29k spell crit, 27k weapon crit. You don't need a lot of crit for this build to work good, but it is better to go with the Thief Mundus Stone to give you that higher crit chance. As you can see, we have 22,000 spell and physical resist, which doesn't seem like a whole lot until you buff up, and then you'll see you come in at 28, 27. This is good for dungeons, guys. This resistance level, you don't need 32k or 33k max resist. Getting as close as possible is all you really need, and this is going to get you really close. Moving on, we do have Tri-Stat food, and we are using Tri-Pots. Now it's going to show I have minor heroism. I do have this at all times because I am running a certain set of gear that gives me minor heroism at all times when I'm in combat. So, really good. Now, moving on to the gear. Starting with the helm, or the food, we're using longfin and pasty melon sauce. Use Tri-Pots to give you the health, magic, a stamina return, plus the major fortitude, major intellect, and major endurance, increasing health recovery, magic recovery, and stamina recovery. So if you use a pot, just so you guys can see, we get 1,128 magic recovery, 740 stamina recovery. We're not really worried about those. The mag recovery is what we're most worried about. Now, you can use the Atronach Mundus Stone, but you will lose a lot of crit. Alright, going over the gear now. We are running Elumbris as our monster set. And with this, because the way this build is set up, it's going to do nothing but shock damage. So, really important. And I think I forgot to do the weapon enchants too. I was just running around testing stuff with this. I wasn't even really... what's the words I'm looking for? I wasn't really trying to test like the full build, because I already know this build works. I've played it. I play it on live a lot, so it's pretty brutal. All right, going back in. to the gear. So Alhambris. The reason we run Alhambris is because when you deal flame or shock damage, you have a 10% chance to summon a meteor shower that deals X amount of damage to all enemies in a 4-meter radius and for 1 second for 5 seconds. This is just like I said, this build is made to clear dungeons really fast, really good. So if you have Alhambris, this is going to be the set you want to use for it. And then the other set that you're going to want to run is Shulks. The reason you want to run Shulks is for the max health, the spell damage, the spell crit, but that minor heroism at all times is why we want to run this. We are going to be using Warhorn a lot, so getting minor heroism is really important. I know you can use Heroic Slash, but this allows you to use Deep Slash, which allows you to hit more enemies with your one-handed sword and shield so you can apply minor maim to more targets. It works out really well. Moving on to the last set, we are running Thunderbug. This is the bread and butter of this setup. So, as you can see, it gives you physical and spell resist. It also gives you a little bit of extra spell damage. And then when you take physical damage, you have a 50% chance to deal X amount of shock damage in a 5-meter radius around you. This can occur once every 3 seconds. And let me tell you, Shulk, or the Thunderbugs, is literally just fires off like crazy in most content. This thing will just be firing left and right. So it is a very good set for this particular build. This build is just made to do damage. I mean, like I said, if you want fast clears in dungeons, this setup will do it really fast. Now let's go over the enchants and traits on the gear. We are running 3 infused on the bigger pieces. You can run sturdy here if you want the extra resistances, but we are using tri-stats. If you're going to run sturdy, just run health enchants. Don't worry about running the tri-stats, just run health enchants if you're going to run all sturdy. So with this, you can see we get the max magicka, health, and stamina on the tri-stats, which is really good, and they're maxed out. On the smaller pieces, we are running sturdy with health enchants, and this is going to give us a lot more health. And then on the jewelry, we're running 2 healthy, 1 infused. The infused has a magic recovery. The 2 smaller ones have shield play, which reduce the cost of bash and block. And then on the weapons, on the shield, we're running a sturdy with a tri-stat enchant. Because when you swap bars, you don't want to lose too much of your resources. So having a tri-stat glyph is really good here. Now, this is where things are going to get questioned. I'm running a Nirnhoned main hand weapon with a weakening enchant. The weakening enchant doesn't reduce their damage by a whole lot, but it does help in reducing the damage you take. So it's really nice to have this on that front bar, especially if you're using the Deep Slash, which applies minor maim to 3 targets, like I said. So if you got a bunch of mobs stacked up on you, Deep Slash is going to apply weakening to 1 of them, but it's also going to apply minor maim to 3 of them. So, really good. Back bar, we are running a Crusher enchant with an infused lightning staff. Now, the Crusher enchant will proc on 1 mob, not all of them. It will only apply to 1 mob at a time. So, but it will last for 4 seconds, or 5 seconds, which is really nice. The thing is that this is mainly for boss encounters. And the reason we use a lightning staff is to have a chance of proccing the off balance. Most of our stuff does lightning damage to proc off balance. So there's a very small chance, but with the way this build does damage and lightning, you'll see why. It procs off balance quite a bit. Alright, moving on now to the skills. Sorry guys, didn't mean to cough. Going over passives, make sure you just get all the class passives. It's really important. With the way this build's set up, there's a reason why you want all the class passives. So just take them all. I'm not going to go over why. Just take them all. Trust me, it's very important. On the one-handed sword and shield, take all the passives. Destruction staff, all the passives. Armor, light armor, you're going to want the top 3 passives. Medium armor, you're going to want the top 2 and the bottom 1. And then on heavy armor, all of them. World skills, soul magic, you're going to want to get those. You can be a vampire with this, it's okay. I would advise, if you are a vampire, be a dark elf instead of an orc. You will have to adjust for the health and the stat changes, but it's fine. And then going on over here, Fighters Guild, you only need Intimidating Presence and Banish the Wicked, and on the Mages Guild, and Persuasive Will. Don't need anything from Psijic Order unless you want to take Meditate. If you do, then I would suggest unlocking Concentrated Barrier and Deliberation. But it really doesn't need it. Onto the Undaunted stuff, you just need the Undaunted passives. You do not need the Undaunted Range Taunt with this build. Alliance War, just Warhorn. And then onto the racial passives. Because we are an orc, this is awesome. We get Brawny, which increases our max stamina by 2,000. We get Unflinching Rage, which increases max health by 1,000. And then whenever you deal damage with a weapon ability, you heal for 660. This effect can occur once every 4 seconds. Now, let me tell you guys something about the weapon ability. This includes Lightning Staff. So your Wall of Elements is down. Every 4 seconds that it deals damage, you are healing for 660. Moving on to the last ability, we do have this one, Swift Warrior, increasing your weapon damage by 258, and reduces the cost to your sprint abilities by 12% and movement speed of sprint by 10%. So with this and the way our character is set up, we don't need a lot of sprint cost reduction. We already get a lot of it through this and the increased movement speed, so it's really nice. And then moving on through Alchemy, Medicinal Use, and Provisioning, Gourmand and Connoisseur. Now, going over the skills, and this is where things are going to get questioned again. Why aren't you using X ability versus Y ability and all this kind of stuff? There's a reason this build's set up this way, guys. This build can solo content, okay? Literally just solo it. Doesn't need any help. So, first ability, Pierce Armor. This does your Major Fracture, Major Breach. This is going to put that big debuff on those enemies. It's also going to be your primary taunt, your only taunt. It also does damage. Next ability we have is Deep Slash. We have this here for the Minor Maim to apply to multiple targets, because all enemies hit will get Minor Maim. So this can apply damage, or when you use Deep Slash, it can hit one target for the primary damage and 2 smaller targets for less damage, but they still get the Minor Maim and the Minor Movement Speed debuff on them. So this applies to 3 targets at once. Next ability we have is Hardened Ward. This is our primary shield. And as you guys can see, this thing gives us a shield that absorbs 14,252 damage every 6 seconds. And absorbs 20% more damage. And the shield cap is also increased by 50%, so of your max health. That's why it's such a large shield. Excuse me. Moving on to the next ability, we are using Restraining Prison. Now, you can swap this out for Dark Deal if you want to. The reason I use Restraining Prison is a really, really good ability for grabbing multiple mobs. So, like, it's not going to show it here, because they're immune, but if you have mobs grouped up like this and you cast Restraining Prison, as you saw, they all reacted to it. That's because they will all be hit. It'll apply to a maximum, I think, of 6 targets. So, call Daedric Shards to immobilize enemies in front of you for 6 seconds. Gain Major Vitality for 2, plus 1 second per enemy in the area. So it basically it's like Talons, but the Sorc version of Talons. And it gives you Major Vitality instead of putting Minor Maim on the enemy. But that's why we have Deep Slash, is to put Minor Maim on multiple targets. Next ability we have is Bound Aegis. Now, there's 2 morphs of this, of Bound Armor. There's Bound Aegis, and I forget the other one. One gives you max Magicka, one gives you max Stamina. Now, we're using the one that gives us max Magicka because it also gives us Minor Ward and Minor Resolve, which increases spell and physical resistance by 1350. That's why we use this one, is to just give us more resistances. Now, you can activate this ability, and when you do, you get 36% block cost for 3 seconds. So you can activate this and reduce your block cost by even more. So it's actually really nice. Next ability we have is Warhorn, and the reason we have Warhorn on the front bar is because we're going to be using it a lot on the front bar. So this is why we have it here. It does give the group Max Magicka, Max Stamina by 10% for 30 seconds, but it also gives your group Major Force, increasing critical damage by 15% for 9 seconds. So it's just really nice way to just boost your group's DPS. Moving on to the back bar. Starting with the first ability, we have Blockade of Storm. Blockade of Storms just does damage over time, and it can set enemies off balance if they become concussed. That's why we use so much lightning stuff with this build. Because if we can concuss enemies, Blockade of Storms will set them off balance. Next ability we have is Liquid Lightning. Again, damage over time, all this kind of stuff. It's a really great group synergy, too. So, next ability we have is Power Surge. Now, Power Surge is our primary heal. The main reason why we use it is the Major Brutality, Major Sorcery, is what people are going to think, but it's not. It's because while active, dealing critical strikes heals you for 2,805 health. This effect can occur once every second. So anytime you deal damage, if any of it is critical, it will heal you. So this is what keeps you going in combat. And it heals for more than the 2,805. You get like 3 or 4K back sometimes. Next ability, Balance Storm. Again, great ability. It does do shock damage every second for 23 seconds, but it also gives you Major Ward and Major Resolve, increasing physical and spell resist by 5,280. Activating this grants Major Expedition for a brief period, increasing your movement speed for 4 seconds, so by 30% for 4 seconds. So it's a really nice way to activate this. Activate this, and it allows you to just get right into the fight. So you can be like walking into the fight and then activate this, boom, and you get that increased movement speed, which allows you to move in on those enemies a lot faster. Alright, last we have Bound to Aegis. You want this on both bars to get that, keep that Minor Ward, Minor Resolve, but it also gives you that 8% Max Magicka, and then the blocking capabilities. Last ability we have, now this is just like whatever you really want to put here, but this is what I suggest. Eye of the Lightning. The reason why is because this creates a storm around you. Really good for when you're soloing quests and stuff. If you get a lot of enemies on you. It costs a lot of, a lot of ultimate. But you're going to generate ultimate like crazy with this. But as you can see, it also does shock damage. So it does a lot of shock damage. And it lasts for 7 seconds. It's just really crazy. And it follows you. The storm does. So it's a really powerful ability. It is in the Destruction Staff line. Another ability that you can use here if you want is Dark Magic's Negate Magic. Now this you can take the Suppression Field, and this will do damage to the enemies and it'll stun them and stuff, or you can take the Absorption Field and it does the same thing. It stuns enemies, like enemy AI, and it heals your allies. This is another great ability that you can take, and I would suggest Absorption Field. You can use the Storm Atronach. It's also very powerful, and of course Overload if you want. But I prefer the Lightning Staff. The Lightning Staff Ultimate, it just works out really well for when you're playing in Overland and you're not really doing like you're doing quests or whatever. It just works out really well if you're not worried about anything. The nice thing about this build again is that it can solo content really, really well. So now, before I get asked how well is this build, how well does it work and everything, I am going to show you guys this build in action in a minute, but first we need to go over CP. And starting with the red tree, I just replaced all the CP because I did make a mistake on the CP before I because I did do a little bit of testing, and then I came back and then I set the appearance to the gear and all that stuff, and then I went back out and tested again, came back, and then made some adjustments to the attributes. So, but as you can see, we have 66 into Ironclad. This reduces direct damage taken by 22%. 1 into Spell Shield, Spell Shield, and then 31 into Thick Skin. This reduces damage taken from damage over time effects by 13%. Now, the 1 into Spell Shield will give you an extra 105 extra spell resist. I know it's not a lot, but we have 2 points left over, which we can't really put anywhere. So it's better to mix between spell and physical resist. We have 56 into Hardy. This gives you increased physical, poison, disease damage resistance by 12%. And we have 56 into Elemental Defender, reducing Flame Frost, Shock, and magic damage by 12%. Now, this is a universal setup that I use a lot. So if there's other setups you want to use, like Alcast's CP setup you want to use, Asian God CP setup, or anyone else's, you can. The reason I use this setup, especially for this particular build, is to get the most out of it. Then I have 40 into Bastion. This increases the effectiveness of damage shields by 16%. People say it doesn't really affect this build, but it does. Anytime you go over a certain health threshold, this percentage of value does work with those shields, with that still. If I were to take this away, my shields drop to like 12k instead of 14. We have 19 into Quick Recovery, increasing our healing received by 5%, and then we have 1 into Heavy Armor Focus, giving us that extra 105 physical resist. Moving on to the green tree, we have 56 into Shadow or into Warlord, sorry, reducing our break free cost by 20%. We have 2 into Sprinter, giving us 1% reduced sprint cost, and then we have Bashing Focus. We have 23 in here to give us 14%. This does stack with really well with the bash cost reduction, so it's really nice. Into the middle green tree, we have 43 into Arcanus. This increases our magic recovery by 10%, and then we have 75 into Tenacity. This is where most of our resources are going to come back, is on our heavy attacks. Now, if you are using Dark Deal, I would suggest using it to give you Magicka, not Stamina. Like, sacrifice Stamina to get Magicka, I know what you're going to say, but that's going to hurt my blocking. No, it really doesn't. In Dungeons, it really doesn't. In Trials, it will. In Dungeons, it's not necessary. So you want to be able to get as much back as you can when you heavy attack, and this is going to allow you to get that extra 4%, which is really nice. Moving on, we have 31 into Tumbling, reducing our dodge roll cost by 13%, and then we have 40 into Shadow Ward. This reduces our block cost by 16%. Now, I know you guys are going to say, why not 81? Why not max this out? The reason I don't do the 81 is because when I put 20 points in, or have this up to 20%, I don't see a huge difference between this and 4%. The same thing when I have 20% versus 16, I don't see a huge difference in my block costs. You notice it, but you don't really feel it. It's just, I don't know how to explain it. Like, there just isn't enough. So, and then moving on to the blue tree, we have 43 into Bless. This is going to increase our healing done by 10%. We have 11 into Elfborn. Now, I've been asked, why do you put 11 into Elfborn? It's to increase our critical healing from our crit surge, or our power surge. And then I have 19 into Elemental Expert. This actually increases our shock damage by another 5% on top of the 5% we already get for being a Sorc. So we get a 10% increase in shock damage. And then 1 into Spell Erosion, just give us a little bit of extra spell pin. And then moving on to the middle tree, we have 16 into Physical Weapon Expert. This increases our light and heavy attacks with all of our weapons, with our sword and shield, and with our rest of our destruction staff. We have 16 into both of these, so increases that light and heavy attack damage. And then we have 40 into Master at Arms, which, to clarify, this does not affect the destruction staff's heavy attack. This only affects the light attack from destruction staff. Sword and board, they will be affected. Its light and heavy attacks are affected by Master at Arms. But moving on, the main reason why we have all these in here is to get Reposit. This allows us to do physical damage back to the enemy whenever we block, so it's really nice. And then moving on over here, we have 43 into Mighty. This increases physical poison disease damage by 10%. We have 40 into Thaumaturge. This gives us increased damage over time to our area effect abilities, and this includes our heavy attack from our lightning staff. And then we have 40 into Precise Strikes, which gives us increased healing and critical damage from stamina abilities. We use a lot of stamina abilities and magic abilities, but I wanted to get more out of the physical side than the magical side. And I know what you guys are going to say, but don't you want your crit surge to hit for more? We already have a lot of healing stuff, so we don't really need more. And then 1 into Piercing, this just increases physical pin by that extra 100. So let's go ahead and take a look at something real quick. I'm going to go ahead and open up my combat metrics here just to show you guys. So this is what my stamina stuff looks like. 20% critical, 66% critical damage. I do have a 5k physical pen. Then when you swap bars, you can see I have like 2,259 spell damage, 28% spell crit with a 55% critical damage, and this here. But that's not what we're really looking at. If you look down here at Power Surge, it went off one time when I was testing it. So it hit once. Now when you go on down here and you look at Concussion, Concussion went off 3 times. And this is like in a 66 seconds, but still, that's not too bad. But that's not what everyone wants to see. Everyone wants to see, well, let's see the truth about this build and how well it does work. So I'm going to go into Maw of Warkaj in Veteran. Now I'm just going to fight the initial pack of enemies who come into the room and show you guys how well this build can work, because it is actually really, really powerful. Now the nice thing about wearing the Alhambra set is we do lightning damage, so the Alhambras will do lightning as well. So you're going to see a lot of shock damage going out like crazy. The other thing is that you do, if you aren't comfortable playing this build with the resources the way they're set up, because you have more magicka than you do stamina, it can really affect your gameplay. But if you get used to the build, you find out it works out really well, especially if you have your healer running spear shards. If they're Templar, they're running spear shards, because then you get that magicka and stamina back. But if they're not and they're just running orbs, you're still fine, because you still get a little bit of resources back from everything. It's just that the amount that you get back is a lot. Alright, here we go. And you'll see I just did the encasing, and all of them got hit by it. Like, all those enemies got hit by it. They just hit me with talons. Did you see that? And you do have to heavy attack with the lightning staff. And the nice thing about the lightning staff is it does do AoE damage, so. And I haven't even used the potion yet, so I'm going to go ahead and use Warhorn. Apply Minor Maim to a few of these guys. And you can see off balance is going off too. Not quite, not a lot, but it is going off, so. The other reason why you want to keep Boundless Storm up is because anytime Boundless Storm or any of your abilities do damage, it has a higher chance of keeping you healed. And as you can see, that shield is actually a lot bigger than it looks. It's 16k. It's ridiculous. Like, that's a massive shield. The thing that sucks is in Maw, this build is really bad because of the spellcasters will nullify pretty much all your abilities. When we get done with this, I'll also show you guys how often the Shulk, or not the Shulks, the Thunderbug went off as well, so you guys can see. Alright, now that that's done and they're all dead, let's go ahead and open this up. Again, you can see 7,493 was our maximum spell penetration. On physical pen, it was the same. So it was really nice. But if you look down here at this, and you go down to the Alhambris, Alhambris went off 257, or it hit 257 times. So it was going off a lot. But our Thunderbug went off 62 times. So this thing with the Liquid Lightning, the Blockade of Storms, Thunderbug, and Alhambris, and Boundless Storms, you're just doing damage non-stop. If you're heavy attacking, you're doing even more damage with the Lightning Staff non-stop. And I know what a lot of people are going to say, this doesn't really show that it can work in more difficult content. In dungeons, dungeons aren't as difficult as trials. First and foremost, you will never fight enemies with this much health inside of dungeons. So this shows a good example of how well this build can survive inside of a dungeon environment. This build just is self-sufficient. And that's what makes it such a powerful build for dungeons, is it just melts things. Now you can even leave this setup the same if you're running, for example, Torag's Pact along with Eben and, you know, Lord Warden. You can still leave this setup the same and it'll still work. It's just not as effective. It doesn't get that greater amount of damage capabilities that it has set up this way, especially with running an Orc. The reason why this build works so well is when you buff up with your Crit Surge and your Boundless Storm, it makes your spell and weapon damage go up on the front bar. When you're on the back bar, you still have a really high spell and weapon damage that allows you to do greater damage when you're on those bars. And like I said, this is made for dungeons, mainly to clear dungeons fast. So it's a really good setup for that particular thing. But that is it, guys, for the Tesla Sorc tank, or the Tesla tank. It is a very powerful tank, regardless of what many think. It is probably, hands down, when it comes to damage dealing, the most powerful damage dealing tank you can play. And what the heck? Why do you keep doing this to me? But yeah, so that's it. So if you guys know what's coming next, if you like the video, go ahead and hit that like button. If you guys want to see more videos by me, you can subscribe. Other than that, I want to thank you all for watching. Until next time, have a wonderful day, and this guy might see you in game. Bye. The frickin' heck, King.